Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys checking today's video out and making some time to do so. Always grateful for that. And guys, today we are going to have a deep dive into how to correctly put line on a bait cast reel. We've touched on this a little bit before in some past videos, but I want to do a deep dive into this. I've got quite a few little tricks that you can use that really will help eliminate a lot of problems that are associated by not putting the line on your reel right. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Dragging a little bit this morning, guys. We had boys had a sleepover last night, so we had 5 boys running around the house all night between 6 and 14 years old. So none of us got too much sleep. So a little sleepy still this morning. And also, guys, before we get started, just a quick reminder: I'd like to invite you to please swing by and check out our Fish the Moment winter lake map breakdowns we have up on the website. And also, I will put my tackle warehouse, just my generic tackle warehouse link in the description of this video. If you guys need any tackle, by using that link's a great way to support the channel. So much appreciated. Okay guys, I'm going to show you how to do this in detail, how to put line on a bait cast reel. There's quite a few different steps in order to do it correctly, that we're going to go over each one of them one by one. So let's start out right off the bat by how you actually tie your line to the spool of the reel right off the bat. Now, a lot of people, they just wrap the line around the spool of the reel, around the round part of it, and tie a knot. But guys, you don't really want to do that too much because that can cause some slippage. Now, most reels, they have 2 little holes in the spool that you can run the line through those holes. So make sure you always do that to get it through those holes, because that will ensure that knot cinches down tight to the spool and it doesn't slip when you're reeling it on and when you set the hook. And also, you don't ever really want to use braided line as a backing, especially if you don't tie that knot there on there. If you try to use braided line as a backing and you don't put the line through that little hole, you're not going to get any traction. That line is going to slip all around that spool. So always make sure that you use that little hole to put it on with. That's the big deal with that. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you got to position your spool where it's held right. Now, this is some of the most challenging aspects of putting line on, because a lot of times you're in your boat, you don't have a place set up to put on the line correctly, and you're always trying to just put it where it'll come off the spool, just in any one way. But the thing that you want to remember more than anything, guys, is it's got to go on like this. It's got to go on where the line's coming off the top of the spool, which makes it go on. In other words, the line's got to come off cross like that. This way the line will come off the spool the same way it's going on your reel. Don't ever put it like this. See if I can position it up here. You don't ever want to spool it up like that. You don't ever want to spool it up where the line's coming off the bottom like that, because it's going on upside down. Always make sure that it's coming off the top of the spool like that. Now, the next thing that you have to realize with that is you've got to fix some way to allow the line to come off the spool with tension, because that's a big key, guys. If there's one mistake that a lot of people make besides putting the spool on upside down or wrong, if they don't put enough tension on the reel. So the best way to do that is to take a pencil or pen and come through the spool of the line there like this, where you've got some type of a spindle, so the line will come off there. And ideally, if you can get somebody to hold it like that, where they can just hold it, that's the way to do it. Sometimes it's difficult, but the main thing, get it where it freely comes off, where you can control the tension on there. Now, a lot of times, if you don't have somebody to help you out, like the best thing, like I said, if you got somebody that can hold tension on the reel, like with their fingers like this. But if you don't have that, figure out some way to set this up, and it just depends on what you got. I mean, that's something that the situation you're in is going to depend on how you set this up, but you got to set this up like this, where it's coming straight off. And the next thing you can do, if you do not have somebody that can help you, is take a wet cloth like this. Now, the wet cloth is another critical thing with that. Wrap it around your line. It's hard to do when I'm trying to film here. Wrap the wet part around your line like this. Now the thing about that is when you spool this line on and and the line is wet or moist from this wet rag here, it seats the line on the spool of the reel a lot better, which gives you less backlashes, less fluffs. Now, if you don't have somebody to control the spool tension, you can do it by yourself. Just put it on there like this and just put the tension with how hard you're squeezing the rope there. So you want that tension to go on where it's about as tight as you can have it without reeling it. And also when you're reeling it, guys, make sure that your line, see the line spool right there? Make sure your line is in direct line with the middle of the reel. If you spool it on a lot of times and it's off to one side, you're gonna get more line on one side of the reel and it's not gonna go on easy. But the main thing, the whole time you're spooling up here, keep it tension, a lot of tension on it. And then what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get the exact right amount of line on your reel. You don't want too much or you don't want too little, because if you don't have enough line on the reel, you're not gonna get your maximum casting distance. If you got too much, you're gonna increase your odds of getting a bird's nest. So what I like to do is I don't ever fill it up completely full. This is about as full as I get it right here. Cut this line over here. This is one of the most critical aspects of it. Now see how I got that right there? The spool right there, I still have approximately, I'm gonna guess maybe 1/8 of an inch right here that I could still go, but I don't wanna go all the way to the top of the spool, because that extra 1/8 of an inch is what causes your problems a lot of times. So always leave about 1/8 of an inch gap right there. That's gonna give you a really perfect amount of line as far as getting your maximum depth and getting your maximum bird's nest. That reduces your chance of bird's nest a little bit. But anyway, guys, that's pretty simple with that. Like I said, it's just some minor steps with that. And the thing about spooling line on, it's all about getting yourself set up in the right situation. I mean, probably one of my favorite ways to do it, if I don't have one of these, somebody to hold like a pin like that, is I try to put my spool in some type of like a small trash can or something, sort of a small trash can where I can have it coming up like this, but it doesn't go cockeyed, it just stays seated like that. That's a real good way that you can do it yourself. But that's the main thing, guys. Just remember, make sure your line comes off the spool the same way it's going on your spinning reel. Wet your line with a towel, put lots of tension on your line, and don't fill the thing too full or too less on there. Just have all that stuff set up, and that's really gonna eliminate the amount of bird's nests that you get. Now, obviously bird's nests are gonna be created by a lot of different situations as far as, the power generation that you put into your cast versus the amount of pressure you put on the thumb spool. Some reels are more user-friendly than others. Some reels can be pretty difficult to control the backlash in if you don't just thumb it just right. Some of them are a lot more friendly with that. But it just takes a little bit of practice, and you're always going to have some bird's nests. I mean, I get them every time I go fishing, and I won the Bass Pro Shops National Casting Competition. So you can still, doesn't matter how good you are, you're still going to get them sometimes. But anyway, quick video. Hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.